Any of you folks, well, since these are so anonymous, any of you complete fucking assholes aware of a man named Karl Marx, a trained academic that was terrified of class warfare, mass murdering people like himself, so he came up with some kind of a pecking order perception of how to maintain status quo without the poor being oppressed so viciously and violently that they would have to mass murder their oppressors to shift the oppression. He didn't say anything about stopping the oppression. He said there'd just be a bloody proletariat that would mass murder off their oppressors and then shift the oppression to a group accepted. He's the strong man who runs the oppression group as opposed to the old guy. That's all communism is. That's all Karl Marx's perception is. It's not forgive, debt, and trespass, and love one another. There's going to be a bloody proletariat that kills off all us rich people and then replaces all us fucked up rich people with a bunch of poor people that are just as fucked up as we are because we trained them to be that way. Well, it sounds a lot like Monotony Begin and Jimmy Carter and the Camp David Accords. Yeah, I get it. So, you sit there and you explain things to people. It's like, you see, okay. You don't think the Irish people are embarrassing for killing each other over Catholic or Protestants on TV if you're part Irish back in the 1970s? And now the rest of you were? Bono, you weren't? Paul Hewitt, Paul? You weren't embarrassed by that? Van Morrison, are you still with us? Wait, was that embarrassing? I think the little girl from that passed away from the Cranberries tried to articulate it, but she had some brain damage too. Tribalism, what can we say? Okay, do you understand? So, when you perceive yourself as a group of sexual reproduction, as opposed to life given to you by an infinite essence that we eternally share on this planet, you do and say some shit that's awful a lot like Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud, and you're just not a very intelligent person. You'll get together with people that mass murder over the resources to maintain a status quo, and you'll build a nuclear weapon, and people will say, hey, do you want to grow up to be like these people? No, not at all, right? I don't want to go to a building where I'm taught to grow up to be like Robert Armit Harper, Richard Feynman, Albert Einstein, Mary Curie, Spencer J. Kimball, Gordon B. Hinckley, Jesse Jackson, Marilyn Monroe. No, none of you. I don't want to be like any of you. Who's your favorite Indian? Nobody, nobody, nobody. Right? Nobody. I don't want to grow up to be chief. I don't want to grow up to be king. I don't want to grow up to be queen. What do you want to do? I just want to love somebody faithfully who has faith in God, understands natural laws, and then wants to obey those natural laws and teach that faithful love of obeying natural laws to their kids. That's all. And then what? And then have your kids be tortured and murdered by the status quoites? Your life's eternal grace is infinite. Eventually, the other day I made a video, it didn't go through. I sat there and was telling the rich people, it's like, I set out to save the poor in Sierra Vista when I first started loading on social media, to save the poor people from being mass murdered by the wealthy. If I could get the wealthy to stand up for the Lord's Prayer, that would be icing on the cake. So I just woke up this morning saying, I guess the wealthy don't like icing on their cake. They must think that's healthier. Well, technically that makes sense in a crazy, sick, twisted kind of way. It does. I want to be healthy to fuck. Yeah, you think so. But healthy, shouldn't health be mentally and emotionally being healthy before being physically fit to sexually reproduce? I would think so. I would think that first you'd have to have your thoughts, words, and actions in hand in a healthy manner, and then physically fit, and then sexually reproduce, and then pass it on. I think that would be the natural order of things, So when you look at things, that guy, actually, those idiots at Fort Huachuca were right. There is no free will. It's like, you're right. Not if you're a religious person or a scientific person, there is no free will. All right. If you're a religious person and a scientific person, if you're a religious person that wants to faithfully love one another eternally, there is no free will. You obey the Lord and you understand the natural laws given to you by God and see it as God's will, and that's what you do, all right? And if you're a scientific person, if you want to continue to discover things scientifically, understand things scientifically in your physical existence, or even in a robotic existence that you invent, to see that if all the humans die, will the cats turn into flying cats to catch and eat all the rats? You still need the natural laws that give our physical bodies life to have the virtual presence on the robot to see if the cats turn into flying cats to catch all the rats. Right, Sheldon? Right, Barney Kripke? Right, Leslie Winkle? Right, Beverly Hofstadter? Right, writers and producers for The Big Bang Theory and MASH and Barney Miller and Friends? I'll be there for you. Right? Anybody else want to see how far left or right they are from Karl Marx or Sigmund Freud? Right? And then you got Sigmund Freud, a really fucked up tribalized misunderstander of things. Same with Isaac Newton. I mean, that guy's a fucking head case, right? You sit there and look at him and say, I didn't know. We never talked. So you're sitting there with Sigmund Freud and Sigmund Freud, like Mary Cooper's character says on, you hold in your poop, you grab onto your genitalia, you want to climb back into your mother's womb. And it's like, that's really weird and creepy. Well, your mother's womb is not the safest place on the planet. No, my mom, if you climb back into your mother's room, my mom lost almost half her teeth by having said kids too close together and not having suitable economic life enough to maintain her physical health as well. Okay? They were doing what the church says, have those kiddos, right? Don't do any kind of birth control. It's against God's covenants with us, right? It's wrong not to want to have children and think that the sin that you're stuck in is going to go away magically because you're not having children. That's bad thinking, right? You have to, in order to live a grateful, faithful, loving life, you have to have children to continue that life, right? Life's eternal, grace is infinite, be fruitful and multiply, right? So it's wrong not to want to reproduce anymore because everybody's being a selfish cow and putting our ability to live on this beautiful planet with the beautiful laws that we need to understand and maintain to continue a beautiful, loving life. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So I'm dealing this. I have no respect at all now for the scientific community whatsoever. I never did have any respect at all for the people that call themselves the religious community, the corporations that mass murder in the name of magic Valhallas. I never had respect for them at all. Okay. And that's why I didn't like going to churches. I only went because my wife's required it, and there were some people attempting to have good values in those communities. But that was like 5%, right? Okay. And the scientific community, they might even be worse than the quote unquote religious community, because they feel they have no boundaries or borders at all, no moral, just survival of the fittest. And, if you didn't prepare for the ice age, and doom on you. Well, there goes our last female, right? That's okay. We'll just clone ourselves in a petri dish in the year 3510, in the year 7510 or whatever. Is it 7510? I don't know. Got to move those refrigerators, got to move those color TVs, and you have all these people on TV at Arizona State, finding ways to biodegrade plastics instead of live debt and trespass free and build containers to last, so we're not holding them hostage in class warfare that mass murders just people in general. And mass murders the rich also. Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. Okay. A lot of rich people got mass murdered that year when I was 35, right? Do you understand? Okay, so I'm going to load this one up. You're going to have to understand I am more intelligent and have better faithful forms of communication than anybody on the scientific side or the religious side of this genocidal conflict, using bad thoughts, language, and actions to defy the understanding of natural laws. Okay, so let's load this up and let's just get back to work, and I'll just, keep showing me that ass. I'll just keep kicking it. And yes, I know I'm gorgeous. Yes, I know I'm a perfect, beautiful man like Job and Jonah, and Jesus is also like them, and I'm like him, and I get it. And so the scientific community, you right now suck worse than the corporations that call themselves religious community, because you should understand the science of this, and you should be screaming louder than them. Because your science is supposed to, correct everything wrong.